The new Demon Slayer movie has come out and it absolutely destroyed the box office, shocking all of Hollywood, even though it really shouldn't have. Anime is being treated as a niche genre, even though it's very mainstream, and it also is very lucrative, which makes me wonder, why hasn't Hollywood jumped on the anime train to cannibalize it? They do this with every other genre. When the Avengers came out, every studio raced to create their own cinematic universe, or when Twilight came out, every studio chased the YA market. But with anime, only 2 studios are really capitalizing on the genre, Netflix and Sony with Crunchyroll. So why is that? It's because Hollywood has a deep problem that has been going on for over 40 years. So let's dive into why Hollywood has overlooked anime, what mistakes they've made in the past, and what they should learn from this and do instead of what they've been doing for the past 40 years. But before we get into all of that, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I do deep dives on the film and TV industry and break down news and trends, so if you're into any of that, please subscribe. I am so close to 1,000. Thank you so much, but let's get into it. Anime really started to blow up in the States around the late 70s and 80s. There were times when it did come to the States, like in the 60s with Astro Boy and with Speed Racer, but the real boom started around the 80s with shows like Mobile Suit Gundam, Voltron, and Dragon Ball, and this all grew because of the growing VHS market. Anime was growing, but it was still niche among kids and college adults, and a lot of these executives working in Hollywood at the time were in their late 30s or early 40s, so they weren't necessarily aware of the boom or the market that anime had because they didn't grow up with it. That's just how it is, and that makes sense. But don't worry, the kids who grew up with anime will soon be in these high-level executive positions once they become adults, right? Wrong. The exact same Hollywood executives that were working in the 80s in top positions are still working in Hollywood in those positions to this day. And that's why the market is so out of touch, not just when it comes to anime, but when it comes to everything. The median age of a Hollywood studio head in the 80s was around 35 years old, where today it's around 60 to 70 years old. The old generation has yet to let go of all their control, not just in Hollywood, but everywhere. And because of this, the people who may have grown up in the 80s when anime was coming around were not in positions of power, so Hollywood never really understood how powerful the anime fan base was. But that didn't stop anime from growing. Anime continued to grow in the 90s with the boom of cable, with Toonami and Saturday morning cartoons, with shows like Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z, and Pokemon, showcasing the strength of anime. The home video market became even bigger with companies like Funimation, and Pokemon the first movie blew up in the States, making $31 million opening weekend and grossed $80 million in total. But that was not enough for Hollywood to be convinced that anime was a lucrative genre. They wrote off the success of the Pokemon movie because it was a kid's cartoon, but they still thought that the fan base had something that they could exploit and make for the generalized Western audience. And since they saw what a so-called kids cartoon could do, they went all in on what they thought were other kids cartoons and westernized it, which was their biggest mistake they have yet to learn from. 2 massive adaptations came out in the 2000s that shuttered anime's growth in the States from a studio perspective. One was Speed Racer, which had bad reviews, though I enjoyed it quite a bit, and it was a massive bomb, grossing almost $90 million on a budget of $120. This left a black eye on the genre, but what came next really cemented anime's death in the States with its next adaptation. With all due respect, because I rarely trash movies, Dragon Ball Evolution came out and was a roaring piece of shit, barely even adapting the source material, and showcased that Hollywood had no intention of adapting anime while respecting the source material. Dragon Ball Evolution bombed at the box office as well, and it currently holds a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes. So Hollywood made 2 adaptations that were not received well or made any money. They made several mistakes in both of these movies, trying to overly westernize them, being a live-action remake instead of just allowing anime to be anime. And this was a mistake that they came to repeat 10 years later. Despite the shitty anime adaptations, anime continued to grow. Personally, I've always felt like there was a want for anime, but it was just largely inaccessible, being available only on cable late at night with Adult Swim, or if you didn't want to do that, you had to really invest in physical media. But with the boom of streaming with Crunchyroll, Funimation, and Netflix, anime continued to grow in the 2010s, where it wasn't just a niche genre anymore, it became full-blown mainstream. But to most of Hollywood, they didn't care, because the same fucking people who were running this shit in the 80s were still running things in the old studios. The stereotype of the typical anime fan was still strong in the eyes of Hollywood executives, and let's be honest, these executives probably also had a healthy dose of racism, thinking the general public didn't want anything to do with Asian culture. But they recognized, just like they did in the 80s, that there is a fan base there, just not the fan base they want. So they repeated the exact same mistakes they made almost 10 years ago. Ghost in the Shell came out in 2017 and was also a roaring piece of shit, as well as Netflix's adaptation of Death Note. They did the exact same thing. And will Hollywood learn anything from the recent Demon Slayer movie that took the box office by storm, being the highest opening animation movie this year, even besting Pixar? Likely not. The same people are still in charge, and that's probably why nothing's changing anytime soon, because these people will be working until they're dead. So what should Hollywood do instead? Well, they should look at what Netflix did. No, not make a live-action Death Note, but instead handle anime in the correct way, working with Japanese companies to authentically create new anime. Netflix recognized the want for original anime, but they understood the anime community and knew that if they did it in the wrong way, it would just wind up a failure. They dived headfirst and worked with those responsible for anime, and it massively paid off. Not only being a heavy distributor of anime, but by creating insanely successful anime like Devilman Crybaby, Cyberpunk Edgerunners, Terminator Zero, and Castlevania. Now that didn't stop them from trying live-action remakes like with Cowboy Bebop, but they did find a hit with One Piece, being a success for both newcomers of the franchise and fans of the classic anime, because they allowed the show to be a live-action anime, not just some ripoff like Dragon Ball Evolution. This led Netflix to dominate anime, and no one can now deny that anime is not mainstream. Over 50% of Netflix's user base watches anime, and Netflix does have the most subscribers by far when it comes to streaming. Hollywood needs to take advantage of the anime boom, not just because it is a great way to bring this culture to the world, but also because they are leaving massive amounts of money on the table when the global box office is currently down. The new Demon Slayer movie only cost $20 million to produce, and it has grossed over $500 million worldwide. It makes zero sense to not try and get this audience. There is a huge fan base for it, it's relatively cheap to make, and studios already largely have a method when it comes to partnering with animation companies overseas. Typically, studios partner with animation studios in different countries in order to make animated films. They do the storyboarding over here in the States, and then they send it off to the UK, France, South Africa, or the Philippines to animate it. So why can't these studios do that, but also partner with actual Japanese companies who make anime to fund their productions and create something that is wholly authentic to anime, while also being just a very smart business move? Netflix has overly proven that this is the way to go about navigating the anime community, and Crunchyroll as well, slowly moving away from distributing anime and moving into co-producing. The anime community is by far no longer a niche community and has been mainstream for quite some time. But because of executives who are completely out of touch with the modern world and modern anime audience, they have simply wrote it off as a niche community, and the wins that have happened in the past, like the recent Demon Slayer movie, have all been downplayed as a one-off. My guess is these Hollywood companies will still look at the success of Demon Slayer as a one-off, stating that it's only successful because it was a TV show. Even if Chainsaw Man does amazing in theaters come October, I have a feeling that Hollywood will state the same thing, or if they do decide there is a market for this, they will fall into the same trap they fell into years ago, and just want to do a live-action remake, citing the success of One Piece as a reason to do it, without realizing that One Piece's live-action remake is actually the one-off. It is not the norm. Honestly, I don't feel like Hollywood will care about anime in the coming years, as long as these executives are in their positions and won't retire, and allow the people who grew up with anime and understand the community to take these high-up positions. But until then, as the anime community has proven itself several times before, it will keep growing with Netflix and Crunchyroll and any other company brave enough to make something authentic that the community will embrace. If there's anything I've learned from the anime community, they are very accepting and want their favorite thing to grow. And as long as a company comes in and respects them, they will happily welcome them in. Did you check out the new Demon Slayer movie? Do you think there are any other reasons why Hollywood won't embrace anime? Let me know in the comments below, and please also don't forget to like this video as it does help push it out into the algorithm and find more people like yourself, and please don't forget to subscribe. If you do, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.